Welcome everyone to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host Sean Gann, alongside my partner Jack McNicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you've not had the chance, go check out our website justsayingfootball.com and follow us on Instagram at justsayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. Week 2 continues with our Sunday Superflex episode. Once again, huge reminder, we're going through all the games right now.
Yep.
Every single one.
Every single game.
One big one.
And, this is going to prepare you for those big Sundays you got ahead for the rest of the season. We're going to be going over all the game picks, the over-unders, the spreads. We're going to be talking about all the X factors, the big guys that we're looking out for, and, just making sure that you're all informed for the weekend. But, Sean, we're going to kick it off. The first game.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. We want to jump right into it with our blowout game this week. We've got the Atlanta Falcons making their way to Los Angeles for a 5-game over-under 47.5. What are your thoughts coming into this one? Rams upset in week 1 in their home opener.
Yeah, I feel like the theme of week 2 is going to be we gotta make a statement and not fall 0-2 for a lot of these teams. One of them being the Super Bowl champion Rams, who got whopped last week. We were very interested to see how that game was going to go, and we were very wrong because at the end of the day, I think that the Bills put themselves in a great position last week, but now the Rams found themselves at home again in a pretty solid matchup. Atlanta played a pretty good game against New Orleans last week, but they're on the road this time, a less familiar opponent, and a way tougher opponent in the Rams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is the game for the Rams to get right after that week 1. Ramsey was saying they weren't right. Stafford was saying they weren't right. McVay was saying they weren't right. Everyone was saying that this is not what they were expecting. I expect Cam Akers to be hopefully a much bigger factor in this game. He was pretty much absent. I think only 2 rushes, 0
non-factor,
yards.
if you will.
Non-factor. Joe Henderson was seeing most of the carries. Yeah. And Allen Robinson, MIA in that game. Stafford looks like you totally forgot he was there. I hope that you remember that he's there this week. And they start to get things going. Obviously, Cooper Kupp will continue to dominate. We saw it last week. I expect him to do that against the Falcons. I do look at Cordell Patterson. I thought with all the game film we had on from last year that it would be a little bit different.
Or at least he'd slow down with age, but he did not. And, he finds ways to score so creatively out the backfield, which is going to be something that the Rams are going to have to account for. There's going to be some creativity to this, but Bobby Wagner's going to have him a little locked down. What I'm really looking for here is that, the Rams right now are in a scenario where the division is going to be really tough this year, and, they're going to have to make this statement. But Atlanta, they really showed some fight last week, and we saw that last season in them. Their roster has improved a little bit. I'm going to just say, this is a blowout game. We have it as a blowout game. I'm going to go with the Rams easy. And, that I got to say, though, the spread, the 47.5, I am conflicted.
I'm going to go with the under on this one. Well, I think it's going to be a blowout game. I think blowout is kind of what we saw last week with a lot of the Ravens wins of 24-9 and the Vikings win of 23-7, where it's a blowout even though it doesn't look like it on paper. Because the team was just in control. So I expect the Rams to have control of this game at all times. And while it might only be like a 24-13 win, those later points are going to be happening later on in the game. Yeah. But let's move this one right along to another NFC West teams, actually. Seattle Seahawks making their way to San Francisco, another 405 game, over under 42.5. Now, I just have to interject before I even kick it over to you about why this isn't a blowout. Is the only reason why I had to have this as a blowout game is solely for the fact that Seattle played so well in week 1, but I thought they had everything going for them, even though I went against them with the Denver Broncos. They had the crowd. It's Russell Wilson coming back. The whole defense knows him. The team knows him. The whole community knows him. They just had all the factors going for him. The Geno Smith storylines of him being done and not good. Everything just culminated into be this perfect upset for a game 1 that I feel like they're going to walk in with all this high and then go right into the 49ers, who had this brutal game against the Bears, and just get their mouths smacked around. And it's just going to be typical Kyle Shanahan. A lot of motion with Deebo Samuel and a lot of moving around with Trey Lance. And you're just going to see this offense pick apart the Seattle Seahawks defense that showed out in week 1, but I don't think it's going to be that good week in and week out. I'm going with the 49ers off the bat.
Yeah, I got to go with the 49ers at home. Like you said, it's not that it's going to be a huge blowout, but I think that the familiarity of these teams is going to keep it close. But I do see this being more so favored in the Niners. Right now, I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. I think Seattle and the 49ers, I think that both their strengths this season going forward is going to be defense and what they do up front, kind of disrupting each other's passers. And both of them are very new, very, very new QB territory. They got Trey Lance on one end, Geno Smith on the other. Both guys are really just trying to prove right now that they are ready to go. They both have guys right behind them on the depth chart that could replace them any week coming up. And, with that, I got to go with the Niners. Even though Elijah Mitchell has been hurt, I think they'll get George Kittle back this week, which is a huge boost to their offense.
We love that. We love that for the Niners. Kyle Shanahan's excited about that. Moving it right along, Cincinnati Bengals making their way to Dallas to take the Cowboys on. Another 4:05 game. Over under 44.5. Big news from this one. Dak Prescott, injured thumb, is going to be looking at a 6 to 8 week timetable right now. Jerry Jones says he will not enter the IR protocol at all.
And I mean, he has to come back with that. It just takes a long time, and I think this is a tough matchup for them to step into. With Cooper Rush, I think coming in is going to be his second career start. I feel like, you've heard that name coming in from Dak's previous injury. But the real thing here is, the Bengals, for me, I think have a more favorable matchup than we thought they'd have in week 2. Coming in Steelers, Cowboys, that's a tough one for Cincinnati to come. Joe Burrow, I think, is going to actually have not an easier game, still a good defense in Dallas, but I think it's Dallas's offense as a whole that really gets to me. We saw a lot of output from Ezekiel Elliott, but even when he's doing 5 yards per carry, they still don't give him the ball enough. Tony Pollard did a great job, but they don't have what the Bengals do have. Insane receiver.
Trio wide receivers. T. Higgins in the concussion protocol. We'll have to be monitoring that as the week continues. Right now, not looking like he's going to play in this game, but always subject to change. I will just right back out and talk about the video that circulated of the fans booing at Dak Prescott and throwing garbage at them. I have to say, fuck you. That is incredibly rude to do to your franchise quarterback. Incredibly rude to do to a player that just gets injured and is walking off the field. And if you're a fan like you are of your team, you don't do that. Yeah. I think that's absolutely unacceptable. It's just not okay for fans to do that. You just do not do that to your own team, especially an injured player. You never applaud. You don't applaud for that. You don't boo for that. You don't throw garbage at people for that. And it's a huge factor why you're going to lose, because you don't even have a true fan base that's willing to stick around for the ups and the downs. So I'm going with the Bengals. They have a loaded offense. I thought they played really well on defense. Granted, it was against Mitchell Trubisky last week. But like everything you talked about with the Cowboys, not having Dak Prescott really limits this team. You need to see a little bit more out of CeeDee Lamb after that first week. He's supposed to be the guy. They traded Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup's injured. He might be in for week 2, but he needs to step up. I don't know if Cooper Rush is going to be able to be the guy that helps him reach that next level. Yeah. And they also need to not abandon the run game, because I thought Ezekiel Elliott was actually running the ball really, really well. I
just get nervous that Mike McCarthy doesn't really know, outside of having a quarterback, what he's going to be able to do. I get so worried. And Zach Taylor, I've doubted him in the past. I see a lot of Joe Burrow last week. He's a guy that goes to work and fixes his mistakes. So I think 4 interceptions last week for him is not going to be, I don't think we're ever going to see that again, from him. And I mean,
probably not.
It's one of those things too where you're looking at this Cowboys team and you're just like, wow, this could be a close game, but they're not even favored by a score. It's a 7-point spread to the Bengals. So I mean, I would take that all day. I think the Bengals are going to run with it. Joe Mixon is definitely was underutilized last week just because they didn't start hot. So I think they got to get Joe Mixon going. And it's really on the Cincinnati Bengals defense. People are doubting you. Go and take an advantage of a backup quarterback and go get it. I think that's a huge thing for me. But we can get into the meh games.
Let's jump right into the meh games. The New York Jets make their way to Cleveland to take on the Browns. A little bit less of a game here. 40.5 over under. Brown said no revenge game for you, Baker, in week 1 when they made their way to Carolina. What were your thoughts coming into this one?
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, Cleveland and the Jets were playing on Thursday Night Football. That was the week that Baker came in, and that's what I feel like is going to really be a huge thing here. And I'm interested to see how the Jets can do it. I don't know what the outlook is on Zach Wilson. It looks like Joe Flacco is going to be starting again. But, we were talking about this off camera, that Joe Flacco, he had 300 yards last week, one touchdown, 1 pick. It was really the fact that the offense just couldn't get going. And when he is able to do something like that, that there's some potential for this offense. Cleveland, I don't see any potential for their passing offense, but their running offense last week was nuts. Kareem Hunt with 2 touchdowns. So I'm thinking that, I think that Cleveland at home, this is going to be, not a high-scoring game. The over/under is 40, but I can't see them. I don't see either of these teams, bringing too much to the table this week. I think it'll probably be a close game, but nothing too exciting, outside of maybe like Breece Hall, looking to see how he kind of develops in another week. Garrett Wilson looked great last week. He was making some great plays. I do want to see how the Jets' offense develops, but I would love to see Zach Wilson in there to see how the whole thing is really going to click. That's just my take.
Reports are not looking optimistic for Wilson, looking more like an October return for him from that knee sprain that he had going on. That's not what you want to hear if you're a Jets fan from your second-year quarterback. Salah's taking receipts, everyone that's talking bad about them, so watch what you say about the Jets early on.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think they're going to win games with Joe Flacco dropping back 59 times like he did last week. That's not a recipe for success, especially for Joe Flacco now at this point in his career. Mm-hmm. This was Joe Flacco in 2012.
Yeah.
I'd say, heck yeah, we're going to be enjoying him tossing the ball to Anquan Bolden. But that's not where we're at anymore, and that's not where Joe Flacco is. And they only rushed the ball 16 times, not including the one rush by Flacco. And Michael Carter, 10 rush for 60 yards, six rushes a carry. They need to start to have that run game implemented in there more and actually utilize it a little bit more, whether it's Breece Hall. I know he fumbled once in this game, but they have to find that balance, or this Jets team is going to be looking at another season where they're right back in a hole of 0-5.
Yeah.
The postseason's not looking like it's going to happen for them in a loaded AFC. I'm going with the Browns in this one. I trust them a little bit more.
And Nick Chubb, despite Kareem having those 2 touchdowns last week, he was the fourth. He had the fourth most yards last week in all rushing. So he had 141 yards on the ground. I think that's how they continue to win games until they figure out their quarterback situation in a couple of weeks, 9 more weeks.
We'll see how it goes come October. Hopefully the Wilson to Wilson connection is everything we were hoping it would be after the draft. But moving it right along, we have the Washington Commanders making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. 40.5 over under in this one. I'm going right off the bat. I really love the Lions in this one, man. I've been all on board with Hard Knocks. I love what they did last week. I didn't know if it was the Eagles' bad defense or a really good offense, but DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams were absolutely carrying that team.
Yeah.
And I love to see that as a DeAndre Swift fantasy owner, but also as just a fan of the Lions. He was everything that Deuce Staley believed he could be in that game.
Yeah.
And if this continues on for 18 weeks, I think you're looking at him as potentially a top 5 rusher in the league, top 5 back in the league, and he can receive the ball so well.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this all offseason as, we've been high on DeAndre Swift as fantasy purposes go. This is going to be a great game for him to be able to show that. Washington, a good defense, but, we've only seen them against Jacksonville this year. So we're hoping maybe that, Detroit, they had Philly last week. We've been talking about how great Philly is going to be this season, how good and balanced their roster is. James Bradbury did a great job last week. Darius Slay, they were shutting them down. And even though the Lions put up 35 points, they still kept it within a one-possession game. Swift is there. The thing for me is I love that we get the little, couple underrated receivers in the spotlight, like Amon-Ra St. Brown and then Terry McLaurin on the other side. But I'm gonna probably go with the Commanders again at this one. I feel like the Lions. I don't know why. I feel like the Lions, they have a great thing, but what the Commanders did, like what I want. I lean for the Lions now. I think with the Commanders coming, it's really just about like Carson Wentz versus Jared Goff, which is weird because 5 years ago these guys were the 1 and 2 picks in the draft. Now they're on their second teams, or third for Wentz.
Yep.
And I like Carson Wentz with this offense with Ron Rivera coaching right now in the beginning of the season a lot more, I feel like, than I will, and I feel like I'll like Detroit a lot more. But I'm going to go with Washington on this one.
Yeah, look, that's fair. I think Jahan Dotson, the rookie wide receiver, played great. Ended up getting the game-winning touchdown for them, 2 touchdowns total, 3 for 40 for 2. That's what you wanted to see as a Commanders fan. Terry McLaurin getting involved, Curtis Samuel getting involved. These were all really big positive. Logan Thomas getting involved. This is what you wanted to see in your first game, especially up against a team like Jacksonville. But I don't have as much trust as you do in the Wentz-Rivera connection, more so because of Wentz. I love Ron Rivera. I think he's a great coach. I want him to be around there for a long time. But I just don't know if Wentz has it anymore. Let's see as the season progresses. Obviously, there's a lot of time to change that. And once they get Chase Young back, which will really add an extra boost to their defense, you never know what can happen. So,
and, I think it's situational. I think that this is one of those games, like we talked about, 48.5 over under. Could hit that, definitely. But I don't know. It could go either way from me. I like Washington.
I like Detroit, but you never know. All right, moving it right along. Indianapolis Colts making their way to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Over under 46.5 AFC showdown. Jacksonville knocked out Indianapolis in the playoffs last year, but Indy just tied in week 1. So, what are your thoughts going into this game? It's a meh game right now.
Yeah, it is, but it could be a high-scoring affair. I feel like if Matt Ryan and Trevor Lawrence figure it out from their offenses from last week, but both of these teams, they wound up kind of not getting the result that you wanted against teams that they should have beat. At the end of the day, Jacksonville could have won that game multiple times against the Washington Commanders and wound up not winning at all. Travis Etienne, especially
drops.
And we got to talk about the running backs in this one. I mean, James Robinson last week, so many people scared to start him in fantasy. Start James Robinson in fantasy. He's got 2 touchdowns last week. Seriously, I mean, he came back from an Achilles in 6 months. You think he's not going to be a beast? Then I don't know what you're going to do. But Travis Etienne, he is going to be a PPR nightmare, but not just yet. We saw that last week. But the Indianapolis Colts, you know why I like them? Because my guy Jonathan Taylor, the Russian King of last year, I'm telling you, this is going to be another year of Jonathan Taylor. We got a chance of seeing it last week, 161 yards on the ground, Sean.
I know. That was on 31 carries. They show this offense is about, which is we are going to run the ball through Jonathan Taylor and Jonathan Taylor alone. Matt Ryan, Nyheim Hines only saw 4 or 3 attempts to them each. One of the things I love to see was Frank Reich came out in the offseason and said Nyheim Hines is going to be a huge factor into their offense. 6 receptions in this game, was the second leader on the team behind Michael Pittman, who had 9 for 121 and 1. Really coming into his own in year 3 for Pittman, and that's exactly what you wanted to see. Now there's no T.Y. Hilton. I'm looking at this game right now. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's going to be a much closer game, similar to what the Jacksonville Jaguars experienced last week with Washington. But I think the Indianapolis Colts have to walk away with the win right now. They lost to this Jaguars team that would have helped them make the playoff had they won last year. Yep. They just tied now to the Houston Texans in their division. Ties are just as bad as losses when you're a team like the Colts who are expected to be in the playoffs. You got to get a win early on. You got to jump on the board because right now the AFC South is not looking like a very strong division. I think all of them took a loss or a tie this weekend. Yeah. So this is anyone's.
Not one win out of 4, and the 2 of them played each other. We saw it how many times this week? I mean,
they were so bad they tied. Okay.
I have an interesting question though that could make the rest of the season for a lot of people who are like playing fantasy though, who are looking at these 2 teams. Right. I want to ask you, between Christian Kirk on the Jacksonville Jaguars and Michael Pittman on the Indianapolis Colts, who do you like more in this game, and then who do you like more for the rest of the season?
Okay. I like Christian Kirk. No. I like Michael Pittman because it's Christian Kirk versus Stephon Gilmore. That was the problem. I almost tricked myself right there.
Just for the rest of the season, like fantasy outlook,
Yeah, no, so I think, so maybe for fantasy in their, not tonight, in their Sunday matchup, I think could definitely be Christian Kirk. I think you have to force feed him with the contract. He had 7 receptions for 116. He had 12 targets. Yeah. Okay? That's a ton of targets with a little bit less receptions than what you're hoping for. So I think they have to force feed him because of the size of that contract. But just like I said before about Michael Pittman, 9 for 121 and 1, I think the long-term output of Pittman is that. I think I think Pittman is really
Matt Ryan's number 1 guy.
Exactly. He's going to be Matt Ryan's number 1 guy. Matt Ryan loves to throw the ball. And you know what they have? They have Jonathan Taylor, who's going to allow them to really utilize the play-action pass. Linebackers and that front 7 have to respect what they can do up front, which is going to allow those little openings for Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell and all these other guys throughout the season. So to answer your question, Christian Kirk in this game, Michael Pittman throughout the rest of the season, and I'm going with the Colts in this one.
I like that. Yeah, Colts all the way for me. Sorry, Trevor Lawrence. Your hair's nice, but you're not going to be winning just yet. But can we line up to maybe my most exciting one of them?
Go for it. You can kick it right off.
I'm going to, with one of our meh games that actually had 2 games last week that had pretty non-meh endings, but still – the Giants have their home opener against the Carolina Panthers. Over-under is 42.5. Saquon Barkley went a little off last week. 194 scrimmage yards, huge touchdown, huge game-winning 2-point conversion. And, Daniel Jones looked pretty good. He had a good completion rate, but not a lot of pass attempts. How do you feel about this game? Baker versus Daniel Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. A lot of good offense in this game. Couple of good defenses.
So I think that the real X factor in this game for me is going to be the MetLife home crowd for the Giants. I think that the Carolina Panthers have the better team, not necessarily in running back, but definitely in wide receiver core, in offensive line. I think they have a slightly better one at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that their defense is a little bit better than the Giants. But what I really think is that the Giants, and the times that we've been there in the last few years, the Giants have not had something to feel excited about, to feel happy about. And there's something about Brian Daboll and this year's Giants. The win wasn't pretty. But you know what? You know who wouldn't have gone for 2? Pat Shurmur. You know who wouldn't have gone for 2? Ben McAdoo. You know who else would have gone for 2? Joe Judge. But you know who did go for 2? Brian Daboll. Because you know why? There's a culture change happening in New York. And the entire city can feel it. So when the Giants are winning, and a New York team is winning like the Yankees, and even the Mets, the city feels a little bit better, and the city feels a little bit brighter. And so I think MetLife this Sunday is going to be absolutely electric. Because for once in a long time, it feels like for the New York Giants, since that sad boat photo that we saw so many years ago in the playoffs, they actually have something to be excited about. So for me, I'm going to go with the Giants again. Yeah. And I really do think it's going to come down to the crowd, because I think that everyone's going to be so excited. It might not be a pretty game. It might be like last week, but a win's a win.
I mean, a win is a win. I was on my knees in my living room, just like, oh my gosh, please miss the kick. And I'm hoping that it's a little a little bit better of a situation going into the end of the game this week. 2 defensive penalties for the Giants. Like, I think that'll kill you against a team that has all these weapons like the Panthers. But I'm going with the Giants at home. I love the momentum. We got the Cowboys next week with no Dak in prime time. I think that having the momentum from this game in our home crowd, like Sean said, will be huge. Not to say that I do not think that the Carolina Panthers have many X factors to win. They have a great defense, and they do also have, Robbie
DJ
Anderson.
Moore,
we saw a little
Robbie
bit
Anderson.
last week. DJ Moore. They
Christian
have
McCaffrey.
a lot of Christian. They have a lot of different production. When it comes to different offenses, the different creativity that they have is going to really boil down to which one of these younger coaches. Like, I mean, Matt Rule is still a young coach to me. I feel like he still hasn't figured the offense out because McCaffrey hasn't been there when he's been there. But I love Brian Daboll. They're at home. It's going to be a low scoring game, absolutely. But I think that they're going to run Saquon as much as they can.
I love it. If Matt Rule doesn't put together a winning season, he might get fired midway through the season, quite honestly. Just have to let that be known. That seat in Carolina for him as a head coach
is getting hot.
It's not. I don't think it's getting hot. I think that's boiling at this point right now.
He's already hot.
You open up with a loss to this. You traded for the 3rd pick in the 2018 draft, and you traded for the 1st pick in the 2018 draft. You didn't find the win in week 1. You have this great young team. You have all these factors, and you're still not figuring out. It's your 3 or 4 now. It's just. There starts to be a time where, sadly, those aren't excuses. The same way there are for players, accountability needs to be held for coaches. He's just not getting it done. They overpaid him too much at the beginning. And if he doesn't put together a winning season, it's going to be his job on the line. Just had to let that be known.
But you going with the Giants or the Panthers?
100% the Giants. 100%. It's going to be the fans' X factor. But moving it right along, we have the New England Patriots making their way to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Over under 41 in this game. A little bit of injury news. Mac Jones, back spasms. X-rays have come back negative. He is hoping to play in this one, but something to monitor. Quarterback back spasms, never what you want to hear, especially coming into week 2.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't want to see that after they put up 7 points last week against a divisional opponent, and now they got to go into Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is, dealing with some injuries as well. T.J. Watt going for a 2nd and 3rd opinion on his torn pectoral. So, I mean, there's injuries already affecting these teams, and these teams are familiar. It's kind of funny watching these teams, and you're not seeing Big Ben versus Brady in prime time.
In the cold.
In the cold. That's what I'm picturing right now. But, man, the Steelers' defense last week. 4 interceptions on Joe Burrow. I mean, you got to give the guy a break. I know you went all the way to overtime and you went down to the kick, but geez, man, you really got to be impressed by the Steelers' defense, Mike Tomlin's game plan. But I got to say, I'm excited to see what Deontay Johnson does like this week. He had a great week last week. He really kind of separated himself. When you're looking at all these Bengals receivers like I was talking about, he really made himself the best receiver on the field last week.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Right now, I do got to say about the Patriots, I think you're clearly seeing that there isn't a true wide receiver 1, and that's hurting them. Mac Jones, doesn't have that true guy that he can just go to every single down right now. Mm-hmm. And I think it's making them a little bit more difficult than the split carries between Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson, making this offense a little bit more unpredictable, but it seems more unpredictable amongst themselves. I thought Mitchell Trubisky had the play that really saved him was in the OT. bottom of the 50 seconds. There was a big third down. It was 3rd and 5. They're on like the 35-yard line. Offsides by Sam Hubbard. He's coming in. He's able to kind of spin away, darts outside, throws the ball to Pat Freiermuth, gets him to the opposition 49-yard line. They get the penalty. The clock stops. It's about 35 seconds now. Ends up setting them up for the field goal that wins the game. He did not inspire confidence in that game for sure, I think, as I am the definitive full season starter. Kenny Pickett, you're sitting down the full season, etc. But I think he did enough to secure his job this week, and this is something that everyone's going to be monitoring week in and week out because people want Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. So he did enough this week, but it's going to have to do a little bit more against the Patriots this week. I think they have the team to get it done. I'm going to rock with the Steelers again this week. They really showed out against the Bengals like you were talking about. Yep. I just think they have everything kind of going their way. Mike Tomlin is not going to have a losing season.
He does not do it, and I think I'm going to take Pittsburgh at home. I do like the line here, 41. I think that it could be kind of like one of those weird 17-14 games. I think it's really to blame on the Patriots' output for, I'm sure they're going to be running the ball a lot with Max back. They don't want to be going after him or making any kind of like adjustments outside of really just getting the ball to their running backs. But I think that, with Najee Harris being hurt, this is going to be a time for Mitch Trubisky to step up, get a lot more passing yards than we've seen him get in the past. But I think that, you got to give a shout out to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had 14 tackles last week and a pick 6 and the game blocking field goal. I feel like he is going to go buck wild next week.
I think he's looking forward to doing that. I think he's hoping for a few more picks. TJ Watt and Najee Harris also 2 injuries. I know you mentioned it. Yeah. He's not going to get surgery. Possible return this season. Mike Tomlin has not given a definitive timetable for obvious reasons. You don't want to put any stock in that. Najee Harris, ankle injury, said he's going to be practicing this week. Also will be there for the Patriots game. Just something to monitor. Ankle injury to the star running back, not something you want to hear. Yeah. Moving it right along. Tampa Bay Buccaneers making their way to New Orleans. Face the Saints over under 45.5. The Saints have Brady's number in the regular season, winning the last 4 matchup. Different team, different mentality. But the Buccaneers didn't look like the Buccaneers. There won't be Chris Godwin in this one, a hamstring injury. What are your thoughts coming into this one?
I mean, I like this as one of our, to kick off our good games. I mean, this is going to be what we want really to, see. We want Tom Brady in a situation, not like last week where he was kind of playing a Dallas team that's going to be, just kind of more one-dimensional with their running game and Dallas is getting stopped by the front 7 and kind of keeping it low scoring. I think that this week Tom Brady's going to have to try to air it out a little more, get the Saints to kind of keep up with them. Last week, not a lot of statistical output in the first half. We just saw them kind of kicking field goals here and there. And, I wanted to make sure, we mentioned too, we got Jameis back. We saw him last week.
But you know who else is back?
Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas, last week, no catches in the first half, and he went 7 for 122 and a touchdown in the second half. You just look at somebody like Michael Thomas, who's so talented, who's taking this time off for injury, and then he comes back and he dominates against a divisional opponent. He had A.J. Terrell on him last week, one of the highest-ranked cornerbacks of today, right now. And, you got to give some credit, though, out to, New Orleans because they got that offensive game plan corrected last week. We were talking about
halftime adjustments were great. Really changed the course of that game.
Absolutely, and that's the key. We kind of doubt Dennis Allen and his ability to be able to make that game plan as a defensive coach, but he really did do the he did a good shift into the end. And I got to say, the Bucs, like you said, they've been struggling against the Saints in the last couple weeks. I feel like the Cowboys could have had a chance to come back if Dak didn't get hurt on Sunday night last week. I think the Saints at home is a dangerous place to play. You don't want to go play in New Orleans because even when they have a bad team, they can beat you at home. They got a crowd. You're talking about it with the Giants. That what they need to do is really like that. Is the same thing with New Orleans. I think that they can make Brady struggle, and I don't know if I want to bet against Brady, but I do like New Orleans at home. I'm going to go with that. I think that Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston are starting to hit their stride. We're talking about all these teams finally getting, finally just adjusting to the week one.
I gotcha. I'll go opposite of you. I'll bet with the GOAT on this one. I don't think that's the week one that they wanted to see. Mm-hmm. I do expect them to to go a little bit more towards Mike Evans. Yeah. Obviously, they'll rock with Leonard Fournette, who is the bright spot in them. They're 4 for 11 on third downs.
Yeah.
1 for 3 in the red zone. I do expect that to change drastically on their part. A lot of the offseason with Tom Brady was different, and that led to a lot of offseason chatter. I think that led to a lot of week one people feeling like, oh, it's now the time where his greatness is done, and this is usually the time where he just silences people. So I'll go with the silencer this weekend, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints walk away with the win. Yeah. History says that they will.
And we're still at that optimistic point in the beginning of the season where we really have an understanding. Like we're all excited because we know all these games can go down to the wire. We saw 9 games go down to the wire last week, like 7 just in the beginning. And I mean, it's just incredible that we're able to, kind of look at this divisional game, because the NFC South, I don't think we talk about them enough because we know it's kind of Brady's division. But I mean, I gotta say,
been there 3 years.
And
Brady's
3 years
division.
there now, I gotta say, I think New Orleans this week, their defense is really what makes it for me. They got Demario Davis, they got Marshawn Lattimore, Cam Jordan, these guys we talk about, but we always talk about defenses being good on all 3 levels. I think that they are good on all 3 levels. We have Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May. Only 1 target allowed between each of them last week over a couple targets. You're not going to be throwing deep on the Saints. I don't think Brady's going to be able to take the top off against this defense this week.
I mean, you never know. Julio Jones, I do expect to have a much bigger role. He was looking pretty good against Dallas.
That big cat.
Like the Julio Jones of old. You never know. Moving it right along with our good games. We got the Miami Dolphins making their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens over under 43.5. Thoughts on this game, too? Pretty interesting offenses, kind of totally separate offenses. One really, really run heavy, and while the other one's super pass heavy.
It is kind of funny. This is one of those games that you really like to watch because, like you said, the offenses are different. Both of these defenses are kind of going through so much turnover and transitions through the offseason, and with injuries, people coming back. So I'm excited. I mean, Tua versus Lamar sounds like a pretty fun time, and I got to say,
I like it.
Tua last week, he impressed me with his chemistry with Tyreek Hill off the bat. 12 targets to Tyreek Hill, 8 catches. You're looking at Tyreek Hill still the same, 11.8 per catch. You're looking at 94 yards there, and when you're looking at somebody still getting 11 yards per catch, you're like, okay, at least they're not making Tyreek be limited in this offense, making Jalen Waddle do something, because they would never limit somebody like Tyreek Hill. But I'm excited to see the Ravens passing game. I want to see Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman also get involved because, like you said, if the Ravens are a big running team, they're going to try to maintain that clock. But the moment that they let up these big plays to Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, you're going to be looking at it like, whoa, now they got to outscore them, And I don't know what offense is the bigger threat,
I think in terms of like ability to score, looking at this one, we'll probably lean towards the Dolphins just because of what they're able to do between Waddle and Tyreek Hill, just the speed that they have. We saw Waddle run between 3 players on his way into the Waddle, which is
our new favorite celebration.
Yeah, the best celebration of the year already. He's done it in week 1. But I think what is so great about the Ravens team is that their ability to run the ball so well is it allows them to control the clock way better than any other teams can. And I think one of the things that people sleep on is just because they're a running team doesn't mean that they can't pass. Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure why he's holding that contract, maybe going over to Big Blue next year, hopefully.
Ooh,
you never know.
Don't tell me with a good time.
Yeah, but they definitely, I think, have a great offense in the Ravens. Justin Tucker can pretty much kick from anywhere on the field inside that 50-yard line when you're against the opposition. Bateman was involved. He scored a touchdown, 259. Devin Duvernay, 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews will obviously always see touches and looks. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I like them at home. I think this is going to be a huge challenge. They're hoping to have Marcus Peters back in this one, which would be a huge help. If not, Marlon Humphrey versus Tyreek Hill, that's going to be the thing that you watch. We saw that in KC a few years ago. He got burned a little bit, Marlon Humphrey, looking for a little bit of revenge, I'm sure.
And like you said, these could be the only 2 cornerbacks that could maintain these 2 receivers. They're guys that keep them in front of you no matter how fast you are. But I got to say, the Ravens defense, I want to see how they step up to this. Last week we saw them play the Jets. They did give up 300 passing yards to Joe Flacco, so, that is something to monitor. I mean, Tua is...
59 dropbacks, though.
59 dropbacks.
Bear in mind.
I understand.
I feel like...
I understand. Yeah, and I mean, that's definitely significant because, they were ahead for so long that they forced the Jets to pass. Very, very good.
Just want to say...
But my point is, I feel like there's little things like that the Ravens take and they say, okay, next week, we can't really allow that. They get better every week. That's what John Harbaugh's all about, is improvement. I gotta say though, weirdly want to know who you like in this game more. I know that you enjoy Miami and what they've been building. I know you enjoy Lamar Jackson.
I'm rocking with the Ravens. I've been lucky enough to go to 2 separate Baltimore games in Baltimore. One against the Vikings, one against the Texans. During Lamar Jackson MVP season. Great game. MVP. It's fantastic. They're a great fan base. Love the stadium. MT Bank is always so much fun. I just think the crowd is going to be there. Everyone's really excited. I think it's going to be a great game. I think the Dolphins offense is there to play. I do think that Mike McDaniels is the guy. First win from a Dolphins head coach debut since the great Nick Saban. So something to get excited about, Dolphins fans out there, right? But I think at the end of the day, for me, it's also the Ravens defense and the inability from the Dolphins to still not be able to run the ball well. They need to figure that out for me to really believe that they can be a team that goes the distance. I have a lot more faith in the Buffalo Bills who don't run the ball as well because you got Josh Allen who's able to pass all over the place and they have such a good offense. And you could even say the same about the 49ers just because their ability to move around so many different players, whether it's Deebo Samuels or Brandon Ayuk. So now I think the Dolphins need to figure out, okay, if we're not going to be able to establish the run game and the run game frequently and the run game well, how are we going to establish the pass in the pass game? The pass game well, because if not, the Ravens are just going to be able to control the clock. So for me, I just go with the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm gonna oppose. I will go with Miami, and I was gonna think, I'm thinking about the Ravens, and I'm like, I feel like if the game does get away, the only factor that really stands out to me is, the deep threat. But it's also just if Miami's defense has one of those games. I feel like last year in prime time we watched this matchup, and that's the one thing I feel like if Lamar is able to get any pressure or make any mistakes, I don't foresee a loss at home. I think the Dolphins will just keep it way closer than I think, and opposed to years past, they now have the ability to make that comeback with the deep threats. So I'm going to have a little fun. I'm going to go with Miami. A little 305.
I love it. Keeping it right along with the Houston Texans making their way to the Denver Broncos in the 425 game, over under 43.5 on this one. I'm all on board with the Davis Mills train as their franchise guy. We talked about it.
Sean's a conductor on the train by now. He called it. He called it 3 years ago. People, just get on the train with him.
Like Davis Mills. Respect Davis Mills. He's not flashy, but he gets the job done at times. I think if you're the Texans right now, you're happy with a tie. You know what I mean? You have to be pretty content with the fact that you didn't walk away with that game with a loss.
Yeah, you have to be very content in the sense that you're like just I don't know, you just it's like such a weird bittersweet thing. It's like I don't know, you wanted to beat if they beat Indianapolis. We're thinking completely different about the Texans.
It's Super Bowl bound.
No, we're just like whoa, they're gonna make some real noise. I have to say I think better about the Texans today than I thought about the Broncos today. When I woke up compared to how I thought about them last week. I was really feeling this Broncos offense. I feel like another factor here, like the Ravens, is that they're kind of at home. They had that crowd. They have that at-home advantage. Like, if Houston, I don't feel like they will – I feel like that will affect them, just coming from their environment, like later game. I think that Denver is a tough place to play. But Russell Wilson has to be looking at this as an opportunity for just to go ballistic.
I think this has to be a bounce-back game for him after the Week 1 loss to the Seahawks. I am going to go with the Broncos in this one as much as I enjoyed the Texans and Davis Mills. I think that Brandon Cooks will still do really well on this team this week. I think they want to see a little bit more from Dameon Pierce on the ground. Everyone was really excited about him in the preseason, including myself. So hopefully we see a little bit more from him. But I think that top-down, the Broncos team is a better team. They had a lot of stalemates, I felt like, in the Seahawks game on third downs and in the red zone, and then they decided to opt for the field goal on 4th and 5, and I respected Wilson for sticking with Nathaniel Hackett's choice on that, and Brendan McManus saying, that was my spot, that's been my spot, I should have made that. And I totally respect that they're all sticking together with that, and I think that's what's really going to keep this team together. They all seem to be on the same page and the same wavelength. That's exactly what you want. That being said, when you have a $260 million quarterback in a 4th and 5 in a critical situation, that's why you're paying a quarterback $260 million. Exactly. Not the call that I would have made. I am not an NFL head coach, though.
No, of course.
And I'm not at the game. I don't know the situation, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't have opted for that choice. And this is a week to just kind of right all the wrongs of week 1, let it known to be a fluke. And when the Seahawks get kicked in the mouth by the 49ers, everyone will see that it was just everything, kind of working for the Seahawks because that's what I had said earlier.
Yeah,
gotta stick with it.
Yeah, I think with the Texans, I'm excited. Like you said, they have a lot of cool pieces. I got to give a shout out though, Jerry Hughes. I mean, he has been a veteran in the league for a very, very long time. And last week, 2 sacks and a pick. I mean, he never gets worse. He never gets like
Buffalo.
He
great.
just always gets better, right? And he is in Buffalo very well. A guy who does not get enough credit. But I'm very sorry, Jerry. I'm also going to be picking the Denver Broncos at home. I think that the Denver Broncos have a lot more pressure on them right now to not go 0-2, and you going 0-1 technically puts you a little bit better of a spot in the division. I think that Jerry Jeudy, I got to give a shout out to him too. That touchdown was unbelievable in Seattle.
That was beautiful.
I'm a big guy with him. I think this is going to be a big week though for Alberto as well. He's coming into his own now that Noah Fant's not there. So just another guy to keep an eye on as well in this game.
All right, loving it. Moving on to our 2 games of the week. First one, we got the Arizona Cardinals making their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. 4:25 p.m. game. 51.5 over/under. A lot of points expected to be in this one, probably because there are guys out there named Devontae Adams and Kyler Murray and Darren Waller. So what are your thoughts coming into this game?
I mean, man, I gotta say these 2 offenses last week that I really thought I was gonna be way more excited about. I actually wound up being more excited about the offenses they were playing.
Right.
And it wound up. I really wanted the Raiders.
Touchdowns.
We got Kansas City getting 5 touchdowns on the Cardinals defense. Not what you expected from the Cardinals defense. Thought that they were gonna have a little bit more than that. When it comes down to it, I'm looking right now at this Devontae Adams and Derek Carr connection. Haven't played football together in 9 years since their days at Fresno State, but what are you thinking about that? You like him in the silver and black?
I'm looking at 10 for 141 and 1. Okay, and I'm seeing that Devontae Adams had more receiving yards than Aaron Rodgers, his former quarterback, had passing yards, and that's absolutely lovely. Okay, from a Vikings fan perspective and from a Raiders fan perspective, because this is exactly the kind of connection that you're hoping to see. A little bit more Waller interaction later on in the game. You obviously want to see Hunter Renfrow in those situational positions that we saw him so frequently last year on those 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 1s, where he was just kind of Carr's go-to guy. I think that they have an opportunity here for the Raiders to really show what this offense can do. Devontae Adams is going to get the double coverage. That's what he deserves to get because he's the best wide receiver in the league. So Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow can really find openings. The Arizona Cardinals, I'm a little bit worried about. The no J.J. Watt, the no Chandler Jones now who's now playing his former team, and is probably going to get 2 sacks.
Yeah,
calling it now.
Good point right there. I mean, he's familiar with this team, and the Raiders they got a good pass rush anyway.
And they have Max Williams as well. And the problem for me is that the Cardinals just were not able to get after Patrick Mahomes even in the slightest bit. He was just getting to sit back there all day, do whatever he wanted, and just absolutely pick them apart.
Yeah.
And that pass rush is really worried because I think that Derek Carr, he had the 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions last week. That's not what you want to see. But I do think that this is the game where they can really bounce back. He's a good enough quarterback. Derek Carr can throw 5 touchdowns too, I think, on a good game, especially with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. And the Cardinals defense didn't do enough for me last week to make me feel comfortable with them, that their secondary can contain Devontae Adams, and that they can really handle the Raiders' offense. So
they couldn't handle Juju Smith-Schuster last week. It's really and McCole Hardman, and they had the Raiders, like you have mentioned so far. They have Hunter Renfrow, they have Darren Waller, they have Devontae Adams, they have a 3-headed dragon that is coming for you, and they have a quarterback, like you said, Derek Carr. I mean, last year, how many times did we talk about Derek Carr getting 400 in a game, averaging so many yards a game? And I think that when you get the best receiver in the NFL, obviously, statistically, you're going to go up. But I want to see more out of Kyler Murray this game. I like the Raiders more at home. I have to say they're favored by 6. I think that they could win this game by more than 6 just on the defense.
Oh, cool.
They could. Yeah, I think they will. I think they will take the spread. And the Cardinals. I don't know, man. I saw a lot out of Josh McDaniels I liked last week and a lot that I didn't. And I got to say, I didn't like anything that I saw out of Cliff Kingsbury last week.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see, especially after the off-season fiasco with the contract and the built-in studying.
And getting all of his money that he wanted, and now he's...
Exactly. This is just not what you wanted to see week 1. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins. The Hollywood connection was nice to see last week.
It was, yeah.
James Conner still looks pretty solid. I hope this is a closer game than the -6 is favored for the Raiders, but I'm with you. There wasn't enough from the Cardinals or from Cliff Kingsbury last week that makes me feel really comfortable with them going into this game.
What do you like? Who do you like more as a running back in this game, though? Josh Jacobs or James Conner?
I'll lean towards James Conner. I just think that the Cardinals have made clear that he's definitely their guy. They're not going to be using Benjamin as much. It seemed like they didn't really utilize him a whole lot last week. I just don't know with Josh Jacobs in the building. I think they're really going more towards a passing offense right now. I think that means that less carries for Josh Jacobs. I think that right now they will lean on James Conner a lot right now, the Cardinals, but the Raiders don't necessarily need to lean on Josh Jacobs. And also, they love to use a 2 running back system, and Kenyon Drake seems to be looking like he's going to get a little bit more carries this week. And I don't know if I love that if you're a Josh Jacobs fantasy owner or if you're just Josh Jacobs.
Kenyon Drake's on Baltimore now, though. He got moved.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think, well, they do have, but I was going to say, you're right, there is kind of a committee running back idealism with Josh McDaniels, and he's been bringing in a lot of other, kind of guys out there. But I'm focused, I feel like with James Conner, right, like it's just, he has a higher upside to score. I feel like you can put the over on him getting a touchdown like every week, like every weekend. It's not like a bad bet because he's like always kind of getting goal line carries. We saw that a lot in his old days, but I don't know. The Raiders defense is really the thing I like more here. I like them a lot more than I like the Cardinals defense. I do think that the Raiders are going to kind of disrupt Kyler Murray. Kyler, we're talking about the Cardinals defense a lot, but I didn't really love everything I saw out of Kyler last week. And 51.5 over under. It's weird that I kind of like the over in the sense that I think that both of these teams, like we're talking about their scale of defense, but both of these guys have middle pack of defense anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's really just the Chandler Jones, Max Williams. That's going to be the huge factor in that game. Is that those Cardinals pass rushers like Marcus Golden? He signed the extension this year. And congrats to him. Former Giant also had a great season for you guys. But they just were not getting after Patrick Mahomes, not putting the pressure that they need. And I think that's an opportunity for Devontae Adams and Derek Carr to take a lot of advantage of that defense. But moving it right along, our last game of the week, Sunday night football match, 8:20 p.m. The Chicago Bears make their way to Green Bay. Over under 43 points going into this one. What are your thoughts? Green Bay took a huge loss to the Vikings last week. We absolutely dominated. Just all such good phases of football on our part and bad on their part. And the Bears got a huge win against 49ers. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy that, I feel like we always get this Green Bay Chicago game week 2 on Sunday. It's always a different story going in. And for this year, like we just talked about Devontae Adams, this year, and you brought it up before, Devontae had more than the Packers receivers did all of last week. So is this week Aaron Rodgers back? Are you back, Aaron Rodgers, or not? You know what I'm saying? Is this that stride that we've seen you take after the years of you going in a bad state in the first week and then you go off in the second week? Or, is the Bears, I know the rain really affected that Bears 49ers game last week, but Justin Fields could have done something maybe if he wasn't playing in a monsoon. Maybe, we're going to see some extra potential out of him. I feel like the most interesting portion of this to me is like the running games of both teams. A.J. Dillon as well as Aaron Jones. They are trying to give them equal carries, give them equal opportunity. They're both, both dogs, as we like to say.
Both dogs.
And then we have Chicago. You got David Montgomery. And, David Montgomery, he's going to get about 20 carries this week. I feel like they really tried to feed him last week, but how can you not in the rain?
Yeah, I know you had to in the rain. You saw Khalil Herbert 9 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. I think that this is one of those games that you just see Aaron Rodgers begin to make everything right again. I said it in one of our older videos, in our favorite videos. The week 1 will not be the determination for Aaron Rodgers. We saw it last year. He threw 3 interceptions of his 4. Went on to win MVP, only throwing 4 interceptions. Didn't even throw a touchdown in that game. Still went on to throw 30-something or 50-something touchdowns. So this is what Aaron Rodgers will do. I don't know if he'll be the same caliber. I don't know if he'll be the MVP caliber. He doesn't have Devontae Adams. Christian Watson, we saw that big drop in the very beginning of the game where he torched Patrick Peterson. He did not get a look back until the third, fourth quarter of that game. That's not what you wanted to see from their second round. There was a lot of hype coming into the draft.
Especially not Aaron Rodgers. He's out there holding grudges on target numbers.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not what you want, especially early into week 1. I am going to go with the Packers in this one. They're back at home. The defense is really good. For whatever reason, they did not put Jair Alexander on JJ last week, and that was to their dismay. It was definitely
Jair
not the right
wanted
call.
it, he said.
And Jair wanted it. He said it wasn't his decision, though, and it definitely wasn't. It was a coach, and that was the bad call. So I think this is a huge bounce back week for the defense that was expected to be one of the top tier defenses in the NFL. And for Rodgers to just say, don't forget, I'm still a 3-time MVP. I'm the reigning back-to-back MVP. Let's everyone relax.
Yeah, I mean, and last week I feel like I didn't see enough, running from the Packers because they got so whopped by the Vikings last week.
They were in a hole early,
But exactly, you need to see it. But I gotta say, I'm loving kind of like what I'm seeing out of AJ Dillon. They gave him 10 carries last week. I think that starts to increase. But they need to keep the flow of this game. I think that's when they start to get really good. The Packers is when their running game and their running backs start to take over the game clock management, start to take the pressure off of Rodgers. And if Rodgers has that game, like Sean's saying, it really only takes a good run game, good clock management, and a couple of good play calls on the goal line for Rodgers to really step up. Last week, Vikings defense stepped up, but I got to say, I don't think that the Bears defense is that Bears defense anymore. Khalil Mack is officially gone. Roquan Smith is out the door. You know that he's on his way out the door.
Maybe. He's still playing.
He's still playing.
Don't say that to Bears fans.
I don't know. It's tough. I love Roquan Smith. I hope he stays there. I think he should be a Bear. But, that's a tough thing. When the defense is a little uncertain, you do not want to be playing Aaron Rodgers.
No, absolutely not. Definitely going to go with the Packers in this one. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for tuning in. That's all the time that we have.
Yeah. Thank you guys checking us out. Week 2, Sunday, Superflex. Always appreciate it. Check us out, justsayingfootball.com, Just Saying Football on YouTube, and Just Saying with no G, WJS on Instagram for all your article and video updates. Thank you guys for checking us out. Stay tuned for the Monday game coming on Monday.
And plenty more content.
More content.